If you had 10 seconds to save your people, would you yell a sound, or would you need a sentence? Because somewhere between a scream and a story, our species built a machine that can bind who to what, where to, when, and danger to that specific thing over there right now. Tonight we're going to audit the strangest invention nature ever grew inside a skull, grammar, and why it exists at all. Night presses down like a hand. The only light is firelight, alive, twitching, throwing long shadows that look like extra people moving at the edge of your vision. Smoke threads into the dark. You can taste it. Fat and ash and the sharp sting of wood resin. Around you, a small circle of faces, family, rivals, children with wide eyes that reflect the flames. Everyone is tired. Everyone is listening. Then it happens. A sound. Not a friendly sound. Not a branch snapping under your own foot. Something out there makes a noise that doesn't belong to the fire. A hush pulls tight over the circle. You feel your throat close as your body tries to decide whether to freeze, run, or fight. Your skin makes decisions before your mind can explain them. This is the oldest kind of question. What is it? But also, who is it for? And where exactly? And how soon? You open your mouth. What comes out could be a single call, an alarm, a bark, a hiss. Something like danger. And yes, a raw signal can change survival odds. It can yank attention. It can trigger movement. Many animals live by that. A vervet monkey screams one way for an eagle, another for a leopard, and bodies drop into cover. A prairie dog chirps and the whole town recalculates. In the dark, a scream is a torch. But you're not trying to broadcast danger. You're trying to transmit a relationship, a configuration, a small, precise model of the world that exists beyond the firelight. Not just danger, but it's behind the fallen log. It's coming from the left. It's not the wind, someone is walking. It's not you at once, it's the child. Don't run now, wait until it passes. And this is where the body reveals the pre-language problem in its most brutal form. A list of calls can't reliably carry roles. Raw signals can point, but they struggle to bind. They can light up fear, but they can't easily say who did what to whom. They don't naturally carry the wiring diagram of reality. Role binding is a cold term for a hot, urgent thing. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a box of magnets labeled dog, child, and chase. You can slap them on a metal board in any order. But unless you have a way to lock them into roles, chaser versus chased, you don't have meaning. You have ingredients. A kitchen without recipes. Out there in the dark, the difference between the child chased the dog and the dog chased the child is not a nuance. It's a funeral or a laugh. Same three magnets. Different universe. So here's the question that's going to follow us like footsteps in the brush. Why did our species cross that threshold? Why didn't we just evolve a bigger and bigger dictionary of calls, thousands of distinct signals, until we could cover every situation? Why did the solution look like grammar? Stay with that question. Because when you really stare at it, grammar stops being a school subject and starts looking like a piece of physics, an information technology for binding relations under uncertainty. Now we pivot from the fire to the audit. What can we say with confidence? What is inference? What is guesswork dressed as certainty? The science audit doesn't do worship. It does evidence, mechanisms, and honest edges. First, animals already communicate. Beautifully. Sometimes terrifyingly well. In the forest, alarm calls are not just noise. They're compressed survival strategies. Birds have contact calls that keep flocks coherent in fog. Wolves coordinate hunts with vocal cues and body signals. Dolphins use signature whistles that function like names. Songbirds learn songs the way a kid learns a melody, by listening, practicing, refining. Parrots can imitate with uncanny precision, pulling human speech into their own mouths as if the boundary between species were just a thin membrane. Cetaceans carry patterns across oceans. So the gap is not animals don't communicate and humans do. The gap is what communication can generate. Most animal systems are powerful but limited in compositionality. That's a technical word, but the idea is simple. Compositionality means You can combine parts into wholes, and the meaning of the whole depends on the meaning of the parts and how they're arranged, like Lego bricks where the same pieces can build 1,000 different machines. Not just one brick per message, but bricks that stack. A list of fixed calls, no matter how large, is like having 1,000 single-piece statues. Useful, but rigid. Composition is having an alphabet, then words, then sentences, then stories. It's open-endedness, the ability to express messages no one has ever said before. Not just more noise, more structure. And human language is, mechanically, exactly that, a code that maps signals to meanings using composition. Notice what I just did there. I separated signals from meaning. Because language is not the air vibrating. It's not ink on a page. It's not your vocal cords. Those are delivery systems. Language is an algorithm shared across minds. The signals, sounds, gestures, marks, are like the carrier wave in radio. The meaning is the message. The code is what lets the carrier wave become thought in someone else's head. Grammar is a core part of that code. And it comes in layers. At the bottom, discrete units. The smallest sound pieces, phonemes, like the difference between B and P. Tiny flips of the mouth that separate worlds of meaning. Then combinable units, morphemes and words, chunks you can rearrange and reuse. And above that, structured composition, syntax, rules and patterns that tell you how to bind the chunks into a map of relations. But here's the first place people miss the point. Grammar isn't just decoration. It's constraint. And constraint is power. Imagine you're trying to decode a message while wind roars and fire pops and children cry. If every sequence of words could mean anything, you'd be lost. Grammar narrows interpretation. It prunes the tree of possibilities. It makes decoding fast. Under noise, constraint is mercy. In evolution, mercy is survival. So what ingredients in the brain could plausibly support a system like this? We don't get to dig up a fossilized sentence. There is no prehistoric transcript way. We build a story out of shadows. One ingredient is predictive processing. Your brain is a guesser. It doesn't sit back and wait for the world to arrive. It throws predictions forward like a net, and sensation corrects the net where it's wrong. Perception is controlled hallucination, held on a leash by reality. This matters because language is, in part, prediction made audible. When you hear, "the child who chased the," your brain starts betting on what comes next. It's not passive listening. It's active construction. Another ingredient is working memory and sequencing. You can hold a few items in mind and manipulate them. You can plan actions in hierarchies, first do this, then that, but only if this condition holds. That's a cousin of building sentences. A sentence is a plan for meaning. And another ingredient is the auditory motor loop, mapping heard sounds to vocal outputs. Vocal learning, being able to imitate new sounds by hearing them, is rare across the animal kingdom. It appears in songbirds, parrots, some marine mammals, and us. If your species can't easily learn new vocal patterns, culture can't easily accumulate new words, accents, conventions. Your communication system hits a ceiling. Now we add the two forces that shape language. Biological evolution changes bodies and brains across generations. Vocal tracts, neural circuits, attention, social motivation, these can shift under selection pressures. Cultural evolution changes languages across minds. A language isn't a crystal. It's a living pattern transmitted through learning. What's hard to learn tends to get simplified or regularized over generations. What's useful tends to spread. Languages adapt to learners. This is a crucial pivot. We don't have to imagine evolution inventing grammar from scratch like a blueprint. It can be a coevolution. Brains with certain biases shape the language they learn, and the language, over time, reshapes itself to fit those biases. Like a river carving a channel, and the channel guiding the river. Before we go further, 3 caveats, because intellectual awe without intellectual honesty is just mythology with better lighting. 1. No fossil record of sentences. We infer. 2. No single, language gene, that encodes grammar like a preloaded app. Genes influence neural development and learning biases. They don't print syntax trees into the cortex. 3. There's real debate about how much of language structure is innate constraint versus learned emergence. Evidence supports both biological scaffolding and cultural shaping. The interesting territory is the interaction. Now we approach the edge of understanding, the part where the mystery starts to bite. Because grammar feels arbitrary. Languages differ wildly. Word order flips. Cases appear and vanish. Some languages stack meaning into long word forms like geological layers. Others spread it across short words like pebbles. And yet children, tiny, chaotic humans who can't tie their shoes, converge on the rules of their community with stunning speed. No one sits a toddler down and teaches them syntax like an instruction manual. And yet it blooms. So let's stress test our reality model with 3 paradoxes. First, the list of words, paradox. Close your eyes and imagine you only have a dictionary. Every word exists. Child, dog, chased, fell, who, that, all of it. But you have no grammar, no constraints on arrangement that reliably signal roles. Just words. Now try to encode this. The child who chased the dog fell. Then encode this. The dog who chased the child fell. Same words. Different reality. If you're only swapping a list, you can't guarantee the listener reconstructs the same world you meant. You can't lock dog into chaser and child into chased. You can't indicate which falling belongs to which clause. You can't bind across time. Grammar is role assignment, a system for binding agents, actions, and objects into coherent events. It's the difference between a pile of parts and a working machine. Second, the invisible rules paradox. You can hear an ungrammatical sentence and flinch. You can detect that something is off instantly, without being able to articulate the rule you used. It's like walking into a room and knowing the furniture has been rearranged in the dark. So what is your brain doing? It behaves like a statistical parser, tracking probabilities from experience, and a structure builder, assembling hierarchies of meaning at the same time. Rules can be emergent constraints learned from data, internalized as predictions, without explicit instruction. Your cortex becomes a silent accountant of patterns. Third, the recursion magnet. Human language stacks ideas inside ideas. The thought that you believe that I said that she feared. And in principle it can nest indefinitely. Most of the time we don't go that far because we like our friendships. But the capacity is there. Why would evolution favor a system that can nest? Because even limited recursion gives a huge payoff. It lets you represent plans, beliefs, promises, and deception. It lets you say, I think you think he intends. Social realities that decide survival as surely as teeth and claws. Once your world is social, the most dangerous predator is misinformation inside a mind. Now we move from paradox to living evidence. We leave the campfire and enter a quieter room, a child's first year. It's morning. Soft light. The air smells like milk and laundry and the faint plastic sweetness of toys. A baby sits on the floor, unstable as a new planet. Their mouth is exploring sound the way fingers explore texture. Babbling isn't random. It's practice. It's a vocal laboratory running experiments every second. Then words. At first they're lonely islands. Mama. Ball. Up. Each one a small victory. And then, this is the moment that should stop you cold, 2-word combinations appear. More juice. Mommy go. That moment is the whole mystery. Because more and juice are not just 2 labels. They form a relation, quantity desired, object requested. Mommy go isn't just naming. It's encoding an event with an agent and an action. Composition appears like a phase transition. Like water suddenly freezing into a lattice. One day, islands. Next day, bridges. And once bridges exist, the landscape changes forever. So how could structure arise? Here's a thought experiment that researchers actually use, because it exposes the pressure that learning exerts on a system. Imagine you invent a random symbol system, nonsense sounds mapped to meanings. You teach it to one person. They try their best, but their memory is limited, their attention is biased toward patterns, and their brain hates chaos the way lungs hate water. Then that person teaches what they learned to the next person. And the next. And the next. What happens? Over generations of learners, structure emerges. The system becomes more compressible, more regular, more predictable. Not because anyone designed it, but because brains prefer patterns they can store and generalize. Noise gets shaved off. Rules condense. This is where a genuine eureka lands, not as magic, but as mechanism. Grammar isn't imposed on language. Language evolves until it fits the brain's compression and prediction biases. Read that again in your mind slowly, like you're tasting it. If that's true, then grammar is not an arbitrary ornament. It's what happens when a social species tries to share models of reality under constraints. Limited time, limited memory, noisy environments, high stakes. But don't let that explanation seduce you into thinking the mystery is solved. We still don't know the exact timeline, when proto-language became fully compositional. We don't know which neural changes were decisive: vocal control, working memory expansion, social cognition, or some converging braid of all of them. We don't know whether there was one origin event or multiple innovations across populations that later merged. The edges are real. Now we ask, if grammar is a cognitive technology, what does it do to reality, at least to the reality we can share? First implication: grammar is a model of reality. It forces you to choose a viewpoint. Agent versus patient. Cause versus coincidence. Now versus then. You can't speak without slicing the world into objects and events. You package continuous flux into discrete chunks. It's useful, but not necessarily fundamental. Think of it like a map. A map doesn't contain the mountain. It contains a decision about the mountain, which features matter, which scales count, what gets ignored. Grammar is a map-making system for experience. Second implication: this is why misinformation works. Language can describe what isn't there. Grammar makes counterfactuals feel structurally coherent. If the enemy were behind the hill, then your brain is trained to treat well-formed structure as a cue for plausibility, because a normal life structure correlates with competent communication. That cue can be exploited. A sentence can be perfectly grammatical and completely false. So a mature mind needs two skills: parsing structure and auditing truth. Civilization depends on the gap between them. Third implication: grammar may be part of what it means to be human. Language is shared prediction. When I speak, I try to sculpt your expectations to match mine. When you understand me, your brain synchronizes with the model I'm offering. It's alignment, not of opinions, but of internal simulations. And once you can align simulations, you can coordinate across time. Contracts, laws, science, mathematics, stories, money, nations. These are not objects you can touch in nature. They are nested structures of meaning, stabilized by shared grammar. Civilization is grammar scaled up. Now, come back with me to the firelight. The same night. The same circle. The same trembling shadows. The sound in the dark happens again. But now you can say, not that, this. Not now, later. Not me, him. And the group moves as one organism because your grammar aligned your minds. You didn't just transmit fear. You transmitted a relationship, a small, precise model that lets other brains act without having to learn the world the hard way. So here's the synthesis, the audited core. Animals communicate, but human language uniquely combines open-endedness, compositional meaning, shared conventions, and rapid childhood learning. Grammar isn't a pile of arbitrary rules. It's a constraint system that binds roles and relations, making meaning decodable under noise. The brain brings plausible ingredients: prediction, hierarchical planning, working memory, vocal learning loops, and language itself evolves culturally to fit those brains, becoming more compressible and learnable across generations. And beneath all of it is a deeper riddle: structure exists at all. Not just in sentences, but in minds, because reality is relational, and a social species needed to transmit relations faster than experience can teach them. Now a contemplative takeaway, something you can carry into your next conversation. Imagine you had to describe your most important memory without using grammar. Only single words: no. Who? No. When? No. Because. Would the memory survive? Or would it dissolve into a pile of labels? If grammar is what binds your world into shareable form, then every sentence you speak is a miniature act of world building. And that opens the next great question. If grammar is a tool our brains and cultures co-built to compress and predict reality, what else in your mind feels like the way things are, when it might just be a powerful constraint that helps a social animal survive? If you want the audited version of where this story is strongest, and where it's still guesswork, there's a full breakdown waiting for you on the end screen. Click that next because it will extend this thread instead of restarting your attention. And in the comments, answer this in one sentence. What's a moment in your life where the exact wording changed what was real between two people? Subscribe if you want more investigations that separate wonder from wishful thinking, so the awe gets sharper, not softer.